Ladies and gents, this is the moment you've been waiting for. A podcast for podcasters. This is Creating the Greatest Show, and I'm your host, Casey Cheshire. Join me as we interview podcast hosts and investigate the ingredients of a successful interview podcast. We'll talk mistakes, earned skills, powerful questions, and more. This show is sponsored by Ringmaster, completely done for you B2B podcast production. To the cloud we go. We have gone to the cloud. We're recording live. I'm excited. So good. I can't wait to introduce my guest today. He is an absolute badass. He's an entrepreneur, an author, a podcaster, a speaker, a trusted advisor to the stars, featured on places like New York Times, HuffPost, Wall Street Journal, Come On, Entrepreneur, Forbes, all these things, Inc. magazine. And he has an innovative approach to lending, to business lending, multiple SBA awards. And I got to say, I had a chance to hear him speak last week. I was enthusiastically involved. I was raising my hand, asking probably dumb questions, had a great time. He's the author of The Growth Dilemma. He is the host of the weekly Amisights podcast and founder and CEO of the MultiFunding and title company, Ami Kassar. Welcome to the show, sir.
Casey, pleasure to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Hell yeah, man. Thanks for being here. I learned so much from you in that presentation, and I feel like I'm cheating a little bit being able to talk to you again and learn from you again in a different topic this time than lending. This is all about podcasting. And I know your show, you love it. I was just looking at it on iTunes, and we love this stuff. So let me stop talking and ask you this question where we start every show. Pull back the curtain for us on your show and share your most important strategy for a great podcast.
So, Casey, podcasts is still something I feel like I'm learning, and sure. I don't necessarily feel like I'm an expert in it in any shape or form. But when I have a guest on and we do a weekly show, what I really want to try out is draw out that guest's inner genius, whatever it is. What nuggets of wisdom are inside there that we can share with our listeners. Our listeners are entrepreneurs. Many of them are members of entrepreneurs organization that you and I are both members of.
Definitely.
And so I try to bring eclectic and interesting guests on, and I really want to try and draw out their inner genius. My hope is if someone listens, and I don't want the shows to go on too long, maybe 20 minutes, I hope you'll get a couple nuggets out of there. You'll get some wisdom that will hopefully help you with some business challenge or something that you're working on.
Absolutely. The value to the listener is definitely something to be considered. What makes your show so great? I understand we're all students of the game here for sure, but is there something that stands out as your most important thing that you do to be able to provide that value of those nuggets?
Well, I hope I have access to interesting guests, right? So in my thought leadership work and my speaking around the country, I get to meet a lot of interesting people. And in our work at MultiFunding, and I'm constantly on the hunt for a guest that I think would have an interesting perspective to a listener. And I try to mix it up. I don't have one particular format. I'm not on there talking about SBA loans every week. I think that would put people to sleep. We're all entrepreneurs. We are involved in different things, and interesting and creative ideas and perspectives, I think, are really important to our work. So I hope if someone chooses to log on and listen, it's because there's going to be something cool in there, something neat, maybe a perspective or an insight or an idea that I had not gotten before.
So I want to ask you this about that. People logging in, hoping they'll find something interesting and unique. What part of that comes from the actual guest themselves, or can any guest have something interesting and the nuggets, if you will?
I mean, I hope I'm a good interviewer, right?
Yeah.
So I'd like to start the podcast. People tease me about it, but my staple open question is, Casey, thanks for joining my show. Tell me everything. And for people who haven't listened to it before, that throws them off guard a little bit. But I try to loosen people up, have some fun, learn a little bit about what makes them tick, and ask them a couple probing questions as they go along. I also don't want to have them prepare too much for the podcast. I want it to be a little bit, contemporaneous and flowing and natural, and just have a chat.
That mix between, you want to avoid the over scripting. You want to get the real them, not that robotic, I wrote this out yesterday them.
That's my goal. And if it's robotic, it's boring in my opinion.
Have you been on an episode where it kind of felt like that?
Yeah. I don't love some of our episodes. Now,
what do you do to get out of it?
I mean, we've still run all of them out of respect for the person who,
of course,
who takes the time to interview us. But some of them, at the end of them, I'm like, why did I invite that person on? Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen that often, but sometimes I'd love it when, my favorite are when we really have an entrepreneur on versus, say, a coach or a consultant. And we mix it up. But again, I think I've done about 75 episodes. I do them once a week. I'm not sure if that's the right rhythm or not, but that's what we're doing. And people seem to like it. So it's all good.
Exactly. And it's art too. There's a little bit of science too, but it is art. And in the end of the day, if you're enjoying yourself, then that's how I like, if I'm enjoying this podcast. So if no one wants to listen, well, I hope they do, so that I send them your way. But if we had a good conversation, then all right.
It's all good.
And then what's great is the audience tends to follow. That tends to happen if you don't make it all about them. They tend to be intrigued by that.
Just, I want to learn something from every one of my guests. And if I can learn something from them, hopefully folks on the other side will be learning as well.
Absolutely. So I want to follow up with the not preparing too much and talk about preparing too much and talk about preparing. Do you do a prep call? What kind of activities do you do to prepare for the show?
Nothing.
Tell me more. Tell me everything about that.
I want it to be kind of just fun, and I don't want it to be too scripted. And of course there's some risk in that, right? So even when I do a lot of public speaking, and Casey, you were there last week, I deliberately leave the last 30 to 40% of the presentation for Q&A. Okay. Now, as a presenter, that's a little scary. What if you get no questions?
That's true.
Okay, but somehow I also always manage to get the presentation. It's a little bit why I despise PowerPoint. It drives me crazy if someone's trying to sell me or pitch me something and they come in with their PowerPoint deck, and I'll ask them a question and they'll go, no, that's slide 26.
That's later.
You have to wait 9 slides because I've organized the information in the way I want to present it to you. And so don't mess with my rhythm. Okay. And I think that sucks. So if they don't want to answer my question, they tell me to wait 9 more slides. I like to leave the room and don't come back.
Right.
So it's not dissimilar with my philosophy about just telling. Sometimes people will call or write one of my team members and say, what does Ami want to talk about? And what are his questions so I can get ready and this and this. And I'll say, just get ready for a chat.
I love hearing different approaches on the show. As in my background is and you experienced it. I'm like the prep call guy. We're not scripting everything, but we've got some questions. We've sort of talked about one of them, and then other ones I've let you know about them, which probably bothered you a little bit because you're like, just surprise me. But it's really interesting to hear that approach of you accept the risk and you just want to experience that person. Tell me about guests that can't do that, though. I mean, you and I could probably riff on it for hours. Have you had guests on there who get really nervous about that, making stuff up on the spot?
It it is not fun, and it just lands up being a short interview.
True.
So again, that's one of the beauties of podcasting. You don't have to. It's not like a TV spot where you have 4 minutes and 37 seconds to fill or something.
Yeah, and we're standing here live. I don't know what to do next with my body.
If the show's 10 minutes, it's 10 minutes. Or if it's 20 minutes, it's 20 minutes. Or 30 minutes, it's 30 minutes. So those line up being shorter shows. It's interesting what you're making me think about in this interview. If after an interview, if I think it was boring, maybe I shouldn't run it.
And that's a great question. I love to sort of hash that out with you, because a lot of folks I've even talked to today, they've said like, oh, of course I would always air it in respect to their time. I've actually not aired one episode of my marketing show. Have you ever not aired any of your episodes?
I've aired all of them, but maybe that's dumb.
Well, it was a rare occasion for me. It was this super sketchy SEO snake oil salesman, and he was just trying to sell some coaching course. It was like, it came from a podcast booker too, which can be the worst. And you know what? I knew it on the prep call. I knew it. I should have done it then. See, that's one of the things I can. Sometimes some of the folks we work with on the prep call, they go, okay, this is not a fit. And then you can just, avoid spending the time. But I knew it and I didn't do anything about it. And we got on the show and he was just being all kind of sketchy. And so 8 minutes in, I was like, okay, great. Thanks for coming, man. I appreciate it. All right. That's another episode of the Hark Mark Show. And this thing is normally booked for an hour and a half. So, but he didn't even notice because he didn't even care. Right. So
there you go.
That one never saw light of day.
You learned your lesson. So I just decided that if I don't like a show after I tape it, I'm not running it. That's help. Thank you for helping me make that decision.
Really? You just sort of made that decision right now.
Yeah.
That's cool. What are you going to say to the person when they ask you where their episode is?
Just decided, tell them that it's running in 2027. I don't
know. Well, there are ways to uninvite people from shows. And it's interesting because, it depends on the goal of the show, right? If the goal is entertainment, or if the goal is a conversation or relationship, then, or business development, is some of the people use it for that. And then if it's just not a fit, I did have a great experience. I met someone at EOGLC up in Toronto. And you know what? At a cocktail party, I invited someone to be on my podcast. And because they mentioned marketing or something, I was like, oh, you should be on my podcast. And we didn't really think about it. So I think more about it now, but she was not a fit. We got on the prep call and she's like, you know what? My friend might be a little bit better fit for your show. We were B2B. She was B2C. She just wasn't interested. So it was like a nice parting, And
that's all good, right?
Yeah.
It's all good. And I think that it's, again, I also I'm not a heavy process person. So the people on my team are like, we need one podcast to go. Like they have this boom, boom, boom routine. Like it gets launched once a week. And I'm like, if we missed a week, would it really matter?
Right. Right.
Well, maybe it would. I don't know. But
and that's a great thing to find out, and if people start crying about it, then if your audience is like, where's my episode, man? Now you got something, right?
Yeah, maybe that's a good idea. Maybe we'll just not run it for a couple of weeks and see if people care.
One of my last companies, we did this thing. We wanted to just redo our marketing completely, so we stopped all marketing, just cold pause, and like webinars and things. No one said anything, and so we were like, maybe this isn't so bad after all. And then we could quickly turn on something different. But yeah, so just finding out what they think. If you don't, do you look them up beforehand, or do you?
I know them all. I don't have a guess.
You know them all.
Actually, that's interesting. I get emails all the time for people asking to be on my podcast, and I usually ignore all of them. And I have to say, like the 2 times that I've done it, I've regretted it.
Me too.
So I think I'm over that also. I'm not going to, you're helping me flesh out my show here.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. This show is all about that,
So I'm not doing that anymore either. No more people I don't know on the show.
No more podcast. Oh, that you don't know.
Yeah.
See, that's a high standard, but that's a cool standard. That's a cool
Yeah,
standard.
no, I mean, maybe like 2 people that I've let on that I don't personally have a relationship with, but I'm overdoing that also.
Yeah. Now, what about meeting someone new? Like I hadn't met you before we invited you on this thing.
But if we knew you through somebody or through a friend or
Through
but
somebody.
it's
Okay.
if I get pitched by some PR creep, I'm not.
Yeah. There's a few. Some are better than others, but yeah, it's tough because they're incentivized to often just get someone on a show. I've had a marketing show and someone pitches me like someone in product like development. They're like a developer. I'm like, what is the you're not even looking at a connection here. You're just throwing a human at me
Yeah,
to
that's
have them interview.
not cool.
Not cool. So only people you know. What is it? What's your purpose? Because I've heard a lot of people share different kinds of purposes for the show.
I mean, my purpose in life is to be a resource to entrepreneurs.
Cool.
My passion in life is just helping entrepreneurs. And sometimes I get paid for it. Sometimes I don't. It doesn't really matter to me. Sometimes it ends up in a loan. Sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't really matter. But our whole platform, I don't know if you know, Casey, I write a daily blog called an Amisights.
Yes, I get that.
Cool. So
I'm on your list.
most of the time that has nothing to do with loans, right? So, which is
Sure.
how we make our business. But my passion in life is helping entrepreneurs. And if this is an additional medium or opportunity to do that, more power.
Right. Okay. So it really supports that overall purpose you have.
Correct.
Helping entrepreneurs.
Correct.
And naturally you would have entrepreneurs on and talk through things and other folks can listen.
Sure.
Sometimes the coaches come on, but don't you sometimes you get the better stories than people that are like in there doing it.
100%. Like we did a theme of people who bought businesses during the pandemic, or that was kind of fun. And it's different things. It's fun. I like it.
That's very cool. It's very cool. So describe it for me then. You're logging into a Zoom and you know the person already. So you're like, hey, how's it going, man? You just hit record and you start riffing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Well, after I asked them to tell me everything.
Right. Tell me everything. And they're like, oh shit, I'm on this show. What's everything? You should say 42 is the answer. 42 is the answer. And then sort of inevitably, do you even know what you're going to talk about with them? Do you have like an inkling of that, or just?
I mean, I usually have an idea. Like they make me and my team have the topic. Like, well, I'm going to tell them what we're going to talk about. So
yeah,
especially because I know them or I know who they are, it's easier. I don't have to get debriefed on who the person I'm talking to is.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Cool. And then, do you find yourself in spots where you don't know what else to talk about, and as you just wrap it up at that point, or do you?
Yeah, if I'm getting bored of the conversation, probably the listeners are getting bored of the conversation. Right. So it's time to wrap it up.
Right. All right, everybody. This has been
all right. It's been great. Today's show is 8 minutes, 33 seconds.
You know, and it's like a secret too, because anyone that goes and looks at either of our shows, if they look at the length of time, you'll know just how much we enjoyed that person. No one give that away to anyone. There's like a magic show. Only magicians must keep their secrets. So podcasters, we must keep that as a secret for only ourselves so that no one knows this.
It's like I was on this our board. I'm on the president-elect of EO, and our board does EOS, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Which is a little bit too structured for my liking, but I understand why other people like it. And the facilitator was trying to like drag out of me if I'm going to accomplish 75 or 90% of a goal by the end of the quarter. And I needed to give her an exact number. So I told her I'm going to accomplish 83.74% of it.
Did she write it down?
She doesn't know what to do with me. But
I'm waiting for her to put that in the scorecard, like 87.23.
Yeah, I'm like, you know what? If I accomplish 75% of it, that'll be more than it's ever done before. And if I accomplish 90% of it, that'll be amazing. And I don't know what percentage I'm going to accomplish it. But every time I make a commitment to do something, I do it. So just leave me alone.
That's why we're entrepreneurs.
Yeah, don't like, who cares? Are you gonna slap me if I do 74.26% of it? Like, I told you I'm gonna get it done. I'm gonna get it done now. Just goodbye.
I can't imagine why you don't like accountability and micromanagement as a CEO.
No, I'm fine with accountability. I don't like micromanagement,
Right.
and I don't, and and I totally understand what my weaknesses are, and I get them, and I try to put myself around people to supplement my weaknesses all the time.
Smart. So smart.
But at the same time, like, don't impede on my creative space.
Yeah.
You want to spend 10 minutes negotiating with me between 75 and 90, you're going to get a smart ass answer of 83.47.
Yep. I mean, there's so many other numbers you could have thrown at her. So that was probably the nicest answer you could give her. So, so, so talk to me about this. Your show is wrapping up. You found like a natural place for it to end. And then what happens afterward? After the show's over?
I mean, somebody on my team writes a summary of it for me.
Okay.
Which I then edit. And I don't have the time, I would like to, but to listen to it, write the summary. So I get a draft of a summary and then I edit it. And that goes up as our Amisights on Tuesday mornings, and we run them once a week.
Interesting. I hear you on wanting, I mean, the summary. One of the things I've been toying about with this podcast is maybe even doing a recorded listen along, like go back and listen to my podcast, taking more notes that I wasn't able, and takeaways and extractions. And, people can hear the madness happening as I'm like, oh, that was a takeaway I wanted to remember. Because you're right. I mean, if you're so in the moment, it can be really hard. I mean, I'm taking notes, but it can be hard to capture all of that.
Yeah. Like, I think it's perfectly reasonable if somebody is presenting in an EO forum, if they want to ask to have it recorded, because how can you actually absorb all that feedback and all those experience shares and all those, insights and qualifying questions on the fly? It's almost impossible.
You got to take copious amounts of notes.
And if you're taking notes, you're not paying attention to the next thing.
Listening, right?
Yeah.
I've heard that before, where if you're writing it down, you're not listening. Do you take notes when you do your show with people?
Never. But I don't take notes very often. So.
Okay, fair enough.
Sure.
I don't either, but I do actually write some notes down, just because one of the things it does, it helps me figure out if there's a question that I want to ask you, I can circle back around to it rather than interrupting you,
Probably smart, but I'm a terrible note taker.
Just be a bunch of cat scratches on a piece of paper.
Kind of, sort of, yeah.
So I wanted to shift a little bit toward you as the host, and love to hear what you get out of it. Like, we understand, there's some benefit to your company and whatnot, but personally, what do you get from doing the show?
I mean, I get to learn. I hope builds like tighter relationships with people. Like, we're getting tighter today, so we're getting to know each other better.
100%.
Right? So just getting the chance, I might meet somebody and say, hey, you'd be a great guest for the show, but I don't know them that well. And hopefully after spending 20, 30 minutes, like, you just get to know them a little bit better.
Definitely. And you and I, after we talked for 3 hours on today's show.
No, that's my ADD's kicking in.
You didn't see that? You didn't see us book for 3 hours?
No.
I'm messing with you. But you're right, though. You're right. So we did a little prep call chat. We definitely get to know each other briefly enough so that I came to see your presentation, loved it, asked you a bunch of crazy questions, didn't cause too much trouble, I hope. And then I feel like in this, and I met your amazing wife afterward at the conference, and then this sort of helping cement it for me, where in my mind, if people have questions about their entree type or loans, like this is the conversation. The person to connect them to is you.
Yeah, I love it. So that's part of why I like the podcasting.
Yeah, it is definitely a cool medium. And what's neat is people can then hear us making that connection, right? We're getting to know each other more, and then people get to experience that.
100%.
Right. Totally. So that's the good news. What's the bad news? What's the challenge? Do you have any challenges right now with podcasting?
I mean, sometimes I wish there was a better feedback loop,
Hmm.
right? So, like, one of the reasons I like writing my Amisights every morning is that I often will get, comments or questions or emails about them. I don't think I've maybe one or two gotten a comment or question or email about a podcast. So it would be fun if there was more of a feedback loop. So I'm kind of guessing. I mean, I hear when I'm out and about and meeting people what they like, what they don't like. But if there was more of an opportunity to get feedback from listeners, I think that would be good.
I can relate to that. The email, right? You just hit reply, and
Right.
so that comes to you, or does it get to you eventually?
Depends.
Depends. Okay. And then, but for the podcast, yeah, it's almost too anecdotal sometimes, where I'll have someone on LinkedIn say, "Oh, by the way, love your podcast," and I'm like, "Oh, well, thank you. This is fantastic. Do you have any feedback?" Like it, and you don't really know the exact person. It's not like it's in a CRM somewhere where you know that this person's listening. You just know that there's however many people are listening. Heard it.
Right.
I just don't believe it, right? Because I don't know the names. So it's like, didn't that many people really listen to it? Did it really have that many downloads? I don't know.
Who knows? Hard to tell. But I like it. So,
but a better feedback loop would be awesome. You're saying feedback loop from your audience.
Feedback loop from the audience would be amazing.
Sweet. Very cool. Well, next question I want to do is get you, now that we've talked about the right now, I'd love to project this out in the future. Oftentimes you've got something like 75 episodes, and that's a lot. That's like a year and a half worth, just going regular style. You get to 100. Sometimes things change. I'm curious if you've thought about where this thing goes, or if you're just planning on staying the course. So if we talk again 50 episodes from now, what's the show look like?
I don't know, Casey. So to me, podcasting is a new medium. I'm experimenting with it. I'm working with it. I'm enjoying it. Where exactly, I think it's definitely a part of my social media strategy and my outreach strategy. I have no problem filling up the show with guests. I have no problem finding and meeting and interacting with interesting people. But where exactly it's going, I'm not sure. Like it might, if it just stays the same, it's okay. But the technology might change, the media might change, more opportunities might come up. I'm not really consigliere and an expert on that stuff. I don't follow like trends in podcasting. It's not like, it was never my aspiration to be like a major podcaster. I never really thought about that before. So I'm just kind of rolling with it, and we'll see where it goes.
Totally get that, man. Totally. It's an experiment and just seeing what happens and things evolve.
Which is kind of like most of business anyway.
It's true. It's true. But aren't those EOS people trying to make us more intentional every now and then?
Doesn't work for them. They haven't cracked me yet.
You haven't signed up for an implementation yet?
No.
Hard pass on that one, huh?
Well, as actually, I have no philosophical problem with EOS per se. I do question people who think any one particular platform is a religion.
Sure.
And what is a religion is the best coach for you. That's a great fit. Not the platform. There could be an incredible EOS implementer and an awful one, or the same with scaling up, or the right implementer or coach for one company could be completely wrong for a different company. So I think it's less about the platform and more about who's helping you through it. And are they a good fit for you?
Wise words. Well said, sir. Well said.
Just my philosophy, and that probably pisses off people who sit on either side of the house, but that's okay.
Yeah. Thankfully for them, it's not the Slam EOS podcast, but maybe there is one.
Well, no, it's just like I just don't get it. Like some people who just think EOS is like apple pie and God and country, and like,
Well, I kind of think that, but you can't eat EOS. I mean, if you gave me the option, I would take the apple pie.
right, but it's people who some people are just like love Apple or love PCs, right?
True.
In the old days, it's in my thoughts are. I think it's having a coach. We have a scaling up coach.
Okay.
But having a coach is invaluable.
Yes.
But I think it's much more about the coach than it is about the particular set of tools that coach is using.
I'm with you on that one. I had a really good coach. Shout out to Eric Cruz.
Oh yeah,
walk me through it. So yeah, you're right. You could have a terrible coach,
and he's not using EOS.
That's true. He's not.
So
not anymore.
Right?
Not anymore.
So I'm actually talking to his team later today about some other stuff. So, that's the point, is that you had a great coach that helped you, and that's amazing. But I would argue that if that coach was using EOS or scaling up or ABC or DEF or GHI, if he was the right coach for you, the tools he was using would be a lot less important than who the coach was.
I don't think I can argue that point. I think I almost wanted to, but I think you're right. I mean, if the tools suck, then the coach can make up for it.
Right.
So it's almost like
nominal tools are right for every situation and every company. And sometimes you got to morph and mold and evolve and change.
Yeah. So true. Well, what do you think? How do we do?
You tell me. Tell me everything, Casey.
Tell me everything. I'm fascinated, right? For me, that question, I'm still experimenting and I'm loving this. And I am loving talking to people like yourself, no prep whatsoever. Then I have another friend I'd love to introduce you to, Ethan. He'll read the guest book. He'll really think about it ahead of time, do the prep call, all the other things. But it's almost like there's that artistry to it where you just do your version of art, do what style comes to you in the podcast.
My favorite interview question when I'm interviewing somebody.
Yeah.
Sit down, we'll say hello. I go, it's a little bit like tell me everything. I go, hey Casey, tell me about yourself. And I'll wait. And one time I was interviewing for a sales job and he didn't stop talking for 27 minutes. I timed him. And when he was done, I said, thank you very much. And I left. And sometimes people get really flustered. And then it's interesting. What do they choose to tell about themselves? What's important to them? It's a really interesting first interview question.
It's interesting you asked it first too. I often ask it midway through, because sometimes I found when you ask it first, well, you're talking to people that know you. You already have a rapport, all good. Right. I sometimes talk to people that don't know me other than the prep call. I don't feel like there's that trust yet, but if I talk to an EOer, like, boom, we're instantly, let's go. But sometimes that other person, or I've been asked that question on a podcast with someone I don't know, brand new, no prep, and they get kind of the movie answer, right? They get I'm a technical communicator, I'm a marketer, I'm an adventurer, I'm a this. But then somebody asked me that halfway through, and I told I was a magician when I was a kid, and they got like the real juicy stuff.
Yeah, there you go. Never know.
Yeah, you never really do know. It's interesting that way. Question: I know you're still experimenting, still learning and growing, but you have a good 75 plus episodes on your belt. Do you recommend other people podcast? How do you feel about that? And what would you say to someone who's been thinking about it, but they haven't started one yet?
I mean, again, it depends what your objectives are, right? So I think if you are like I mean, my personal brand is important to me. I like to have content out there. I like to keep fresh content out there. I like to be in the forefront of people's minds. Okay. So in that vein, I think the investing in that I do and the time and all that for podcasting is worth it. But there is some sort of method to my madness, right? And not everybody might have that same method, which is okay. I don't think it's for everybody.
Not for everyone. It might be, it may not. It's just up to experimenting, trying it out or not, or
Experimenting, trying it out, playing with it, seeing what works for you, what doesn't, and growing from it. I mean,
yeah,
it's kind of what it takes, I think.
love that. Well, hey, where can people reach out? They want to connect with you on
Sure. So they can reach out
all the
anytime
things.
at MultiFunding, MultiFunding.com. Or if they want to, they are free to email me at ami@multifunding.com.
Awesome. Beautiful. And the podcast, where can they get that?
Good question. You told me the Amisights.com is the podcast.
Right. And the newsletter.
The newsletter, you go to Amisights.com and you can sign up for the daily blog if you want to. The daily blog's literally meant to be a fun 30-second read every morning. Not more than that. Just give you a little nugget of an idea, something to kickstart your day with or something. And some days you might really resonate with it, and other days you might not, and that's okay.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. That's what I've experienced, and it's actually been refreshing. Sometimes you get those 3-page long ones, and I don't have time to go through this whole thing. This is a cool little quick nugget. It's fun. It's silly. It's not like you said, it's not tied to SBA loans every time. It's just
sometimes you just have to laugh at yourself.
A little chit chat. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's part of the idea of it. So.
Fantastic. Well, my last question is ice cream. Love it or hate it?
Mint chocolate chip, baby.
Dude, we should have brought that up at the beginning. I'm a mint chocolate chip guy.
There we go. That's
find this out at the end.
That's why we like each other.
See, now I understand why. I didn't know until just now.
There we go.
Okay, who has the best mint chocolate chip?
Oh, I don't know. I don't pay that much attention, to be honest. Maybe I should. So.
You should, because the other day I got some from Friendly's and it was terrible. So they're on my blacklist.
Yeah.
It was like they just punched they just checked the box. They didn't actually try. It was terrible.
My favorite is the mint Itsit in San Francisco. That's my favorite.
Interesting. Ben and Jerry's has a mint cookie. It's like mint cookie chocolate chip thing. Worth checking out.
Cool. I'll check it out.
Cool. Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on here. I've enjoyed learning and challenging ideas and just kind of hanging out with you.
Appreciate you, Casey. Thank you so much.
And I'd love to talk to the people listening. If you've learned something, if you've gotten a nugget or two, then share this with someone else. That's thought leadership. 1 person, 9 people, 3,000 people, whatever. Get good information into other people's hands. With that, Ami, thank you so much, sir. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
Oh, that's my saying. You can't use it anymore.
Do you really? Is that your saying? I've well then perfectly said.
All good, buddy. Thank you very much.
Thanks, man. All right, everyone. This has been another exciting episode of Creating the Greatest Show. We will catch you all next time. And next time doesn't have to be next week. Life's too short, and we have way too much to talk about. Find show notes full of takeaways, lessons, and links at creatingthegreatestshow.com. For more information on launching your own podcast or working with us to produce your existing show, come on down to the big tent at ringmaster.com. Until then, friends, whatever you do, do it with all your might. Work at it, if necessary, early and late, in season and out of season, not leaving a stone unturned and never deferring for a single hour that which can be done just as well now. P.T. Barnum.